Hey, this is a video for Diversity in Comics. I'm a backer of your work, and I love watching your videos. Uh, but I just want to maybe clarify something, or maybe just have you think of something in a little bit of a different way. I've been pretty busy, haven't been able to watch your videos, but I just saw your video on Border Town, and you mentioned that the artists should commit to the bit. That if they really believe in no borders, then they should sleep with their windows open all the time. They should never lock their doors inside or out. And I think I should ask the same thing, if you would be fair, to ask you to send the same challenge to you. If you really think it should take 12 years and 10 grand for a person to be invited into a place, why don't we do that with everyone? Before you're invited to your friend's house, why isn't the government require you to fill out paperwork and do a 10-year review just to make sure it's safe? Obviously, you're living with one of your friends while you do a lot of this fulfillment stuff for Iron Sights. Why didn't you have to file paperwork with the government who did a review just to make sure your friend was safe? Um, Again, it's the same thing. Commit to the bit. Like, you should. I mean, what, we're gonna force people to wait 10 years before they're allowed to go to a friend's house? And also, for a lot of people who I feel don't have a great clarity on immigration, everyone understands, it's about security, it's about knowing who's coming in and who's going. If that's your main concern, you have to understand that you're not going to stop immigration by building a wall, by tougher crime, by having tougher laws. It's almost exactly like stopping the drug war. The government waged a drug war for decades. And what happened to marijuana? How hard was it to get marijuana when it was illegal nationwide? And eventually what you just have is a capitulation. The government just gives up because, look, governments aren't magic. You can't build a wall and then just, oh, your immigration problem solved, people stop coming over. The same forces, supply and demand, that rule the drug markets also rule the labor markets. And the reason why immigration has never been solved, even though it's been the #1 issue for people on the left and the right, it's not a Republican or Democratic issue. Most voters are against illegal immigration. Most legal immigrants are against immigration. But what most people don't understand is that the government doesn't have the capacity to deal with it. That basically, same thing with marijuana. You can't arrest everyone who does marijuana, and eventually, just a couple. Realistically, the government just gives up on prosecuting. After that, then legally they give up. Like, in California, they just kind of said, well, we're gonna legalize it. And what you're gonna see, depending on what Trump decides to do, I think the wall is like whatever. I mean, it's not gonna change anything. It's only $20 billion, which is actually a very small sum. It's something that maybe he should do because he made a promise, and you should keep your promises in office, so people have faith in your administration. But realistically, it's not going to do anything. There's so many millions of Americans here, and Trump, they actually registered with the government. Illegal immigrants who have ITINs, that's a social security number, but you have to be a citizen to have a social security number. So they give them ITINs. If I don't know if you ever practice, or if you know about taxes, but this is a legal way for illegal immigrants to submit their tax paperwork. Additionally, you have the DACA children, the Dreamers. And Trump has already come out and said, yeah, we're not going to deport them. They've got a special place in my heart. The government knows all these people who have they know all the people who have ITINs, and they know where they live, because that information is included. They know the jobs they have. They know which businesses they run and own. The problem is that the government has just quietly given up on enforcing our borders because it doesn't make any sense. And what I mean about not making sense, not from a security perspective, because the vast majority of people who come through back and forth, it's not a security risk. But as far as voters are concerned, it's very difficult to persuade them to legalize immigration. So you have this kind of quasi-legalization where on paper you can't legalize them, but realistically, like, hey, like, if you're an illegal immigrant, you can get money to go to college in the United States, to a state college. So you have the government giving money to someone they know is here illegally for them to take up government resources, like, because that seat in a classroom, that's a government resource, because it's a state school. Again, and this is from Texas, I'm speaking as, someone who grew up in Texas. Like, it happens, and, I think a compromise that would make everyone happy would be that if we could vastly reduce the cost and the time investment it took to come to the United States. And by the way, Trump has said this. Trump has said this many, many times. He's on the same page. It's just how you get from here where we're at to over there. It's very difficult to persuade the population who refuses I mean, most people on most subjects are kind of low information voters. They don't really think about topics until they come up, and they don't, take time to read the studies. They don't take time to look at, supply and demand curves and, blah, blah, blah. But President Trump has said many times, like, we're going to build a wall and we're going to put a huge, beautiful door for people to come through. And he said that many times about the door, letting people come through. The whole point is that we should make it really easy for people to come here. Maybe what, $1,000 and maybe like 6 months, maybe 1 month, to come through the legal way, because basically the only thing holding it up is government bureaucracy, and you can streamline the process. It's possible and it's doable, and if it's cheaper to come here legally than illegally, all of a sudden people aren't going to be crossing the border illegally, except for criminals who know that they're wanted for drunk driving, as you mentioned, for murder, for drug smuggling. If you make it really easy for people to come here legally and you expedite the process, then you wouldn't have this issue. You wouldn't have this security concern. America would at once be safer and richer. Only problem is that most voters don't kind of see these things this way, and what you mentioned about security, that's what most people say. Well, we just need to know who's coming in. We just want to be safe. We don't want Al Qaeda coming in through the southern border, which is fair. But again, that's the way to do it. You lower how much it costs in time and money to come here legally, and then people won't come here illegally. And if they do, then you actually do have a case for, say, hey, look at how easy it is to come here. Obviously, anyone who's avoiding this process is here to do us harm, or they're wanted, or there's some nefarious reason they're coming over. And then I think you would have, that's a really good compromise for both security and people who are in favor of stricter controls because for security reasons, and people who are in favor of a freer flow of immigration. All of that being said, yeah, I mean I guess that's everything. I don't want to make the video too long. I know you're a very busy person, but yeah, just keep in mind that you're not going to stop illegal immigration. It's every time you think of that, just think of how incompetent the government is when it does most things, including the drug war. It's really labor versus things. There's no difference in economics. You look at supply and demand curves. Labor is just a thing you can buy and sell, and if people need cheap labor, then they're going to get it. They're going to import it, and that's just what immigration is. And the government wasn't able to stop. There was a prohibition on alcohol, that didn't work out. There's a prohibition on drugs, that didn't work out, and is going horribly. And there's also a prohibition right now on labor. And oh yeah, here's the last thing I was going to say. I know in the comments you read, I know when you like something, it's just that you saw it. Some guy said, oh, well, my dad came here in the 30s with no money and blah, 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 and he worked in this, a fume-filled paper mill. It's like, okay, yes, but today he would never be able to come in. He didn't have 10 grand to go through the immigration process. He didn't have 10 years to wait. People whose parents came here. Ellis Island was a very few people got turned away at Ellis Island. It's like literally you show up, they do it, they make sure you don't have any diseases that could spread. They make sure you're not going to be a burden on the system, and then they just move you on through. It's very simple to have, look, it literally took minutes, each evaluation. And people already bought tickets, right? People already bought tickets. So it's like one of those things, you literally just show up and they say, all right, you're good to go, you're good to go. We need to move more to something like that. Maybe you can add a background check because computers are so powerful now. But yeah, a lot of people don't understand who you said, well, a lot of people, are son of immigrants or whatever. A lot of people don't understand that, yes, if we had the same immigration laws that we used to have, yeah, none of those people would be able to get in. None of their parents, none of their grandparents would be allowed in. And people don't realize how, it's just like anything in the government. If you give it too much time, and I'm sure you know this from the military, there's a lot of wasted resources. There's a lot of there's a lot of inefficiencies, and maybe we can maybe that's okay for some things. You know, like if efficiency is not always the number one concern. Mostly when the government's concerned, it's safety is the number one concern. But over time, these inefficiencies just keep adding up and keep adding up. Eventually becomes impossible. How much is 10 grand for the average, how long would it take for the average American to save up 10 grand to immigrate here, much less the average Mexican? It's not realistic, and you're just going to encourage, it's actually, it makes us less safe, because once you have this infrastructure for coming here legally, again, like people from Bangladesh can use it, people from Al Qaeda can use it. There's this really big issue where illegal immigrants don't report gang members because they're worried that if they go to the police, they'll end up getting deported as well. So it's just one of those things that, if you make things the way they used to be, like back when, a lot of these people in the comments say, oh, well, my grandparents came here illegally. It's like, yeah, well, if we make things that easy, then yeah, people will come here legally. Anyways, just think about it. It's a good compromise. Make things really easy to come in, make it really easy to come in here, and also build the wall. Do both. If you want, Trump decided to build the wall first, but he said many times, we're gonna make it easy for them to come in here. We're not gonna deport them. We know where the DACA people live. Okay, we know where everyone with an I-10 who's here illegally, we know where they live, and the government has decided not to deport them because realistically the system, it can't. The government doesn't have that much money. The government's not a magic wand. The police, it would just overwhelm the police. It overwhelm the infrastructure of the United States. Anyways, have a great day, and if you could give me a little shout out, that would be next level. Bye.